Hey, my name is Kelly Kessler. I'm the host of the podcast Rewiring Health, and I'm obsessed with helping you stop feeling burnout, living in pain, and anxious about the future. You see, for years, I felt like I was never good enough. I repeated in my head, when I accomplish this, then I'll finally be happy. And even when I accomplished it, there was always emptiness in my heart. I always put others' needs before my own. Negative thoughts ran wild in my head, and I always struggled to truly feel like I could relax and be present. Well, through my journey of healing, rewiring my brain, regulating my nervous system, and reprogramming my subconscious mind, I have recovered from an eating disorder, I have healed from chronic back pain, and I can truly be present with my 2 boys and feel that I am living the life I was destined to live with purpose and with joy. And I'm here to guide you along the same journey of healing. Food and nutrition play such a huge role in our lives, but have you ever stopped to think about how the food choices you're making are impacting your brain health and your overall quality of life? Well, that's why I'm so excited to bring this episode to you. I had the pleasure of speaking with Michael Hunsinger. Michael and his wife, Dr. Isabel, are the MD and chef coaching team. They offer you precision personalized medicine. Their mission is to help you prevent and reverse disease and give you hope. Michael is a culinary nutrition expert and Bredesen ReCode Protocol 2.0 health coach for prevention and reversal of Alzheimer's and dementia. Michael is also a graduate of California Culinary Academy, which is European-style school for professional chefs. And he's an honors graduate of the Academy of Culinary Nutrition in Toronto, Canada. And I had the pleasure to speak with Michael's wife, Dr. Isabel, a few months ago on my podcast. So definitely check out her episode. It was absolutely incredible, the value that she brought in talking about hormones and how we can really transform our lives. So I'm just so honored to have Michael on today and just really dive into food and nutrition. And I'm telling you, this episode absolutely did not disappoint. So enjoy the episode, and I guarantee you will think differently about food at the end of this. So you wake up, your phone is right on the table next to you, and it feels almost like a magnet. You grab the phone, and before you know it, you subconsciously open every app, scroll through social media, you're on your email, you're looking at the news headlines, and you're feeling stressed. And this is how you start your day. I can't tell you how many times I did this, and it did not serve me. It set me up to be in a whirlwind of negativity, and I was just starting my day. And that's why I created the morning guide for perfectionists. So if you struggle with negativity throughout the day, and it's even worse in the morning because you don't have a routine, this will help you tremendously. It's literally everything that I implement that has helped me start my day with the right intentions and put myself into a place of inner harmony. So grab in the link below and enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. I am so excited to be joined by Michael Hunsinger. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me here today, Kelly. I'm looking forward to being able to serve your listeners. This is going to be fun.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to have this conversation. So just to kind of preface this, I had Michael's wife on about a month ago. So definitely listen to that episode. But fascinated by what she talked about and hormones and brain health. And it just was so fascinating. So this is going to be a really good complementary episode to that, where we talk about now food and brain health. And this is something I'm interested in, and I think needs to be kind of shouted from the rooftops, because we need to look at food differently. We need to look at our brains differently. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But I just want to start out with, how did you get into this field? Like what's the journey that you took that inspired you to get to doing what you're doing today?
A little bit of personal story, huh?
Yeah, I love that.
All right. Yeah, well, Isabel and I we're very transparent about our lives and what's going on. And for me, my background is being what's called an executive chef. I was the executive chef in the US in large hotels and private country clubs like golf and tennis clubs and swim clubs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was good at that. But it had nothing to do with nutrition, had nothing to do with healthy lifestyle, the 70-hour a week for about 25 years. And as I was entering my 40s and 50s, both of my parents died at a young age. My mom was 53, died of chronic disease. My dad was 69, died of chronic disease. I'm about hitting about the age of 50 or so.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, is that me? Is that where I'm heading? I mean, I got a beautiful wife. I've got a couple of young daughters, and I'm thinking, oh no, I guess this is where I'm heading, or maybe is it not?
Mhm.
So then that's when I started to realize I think I need to look into this a little bit more. Like, how am I going to stay alive long term? How am I going to stay alive past my 50s and 60s and way beyond? And that's what started the understanding that there is some things I can do. There is lifestyle factors that can change how I live, and that doesn't have to be me. I can change that. I'm not stuck with this. And
Yeah.
that started the process of, okay, now I really started need to educate myself and apply it to myself after learning it. That's the hard part.
That's
It's
the
like,
hard part.
oh, I got a lot of habits I need to change here.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
So that started the process.
Mhm. Well, I like how
Yeah.
you talk about that because I think sometimes people look at their genetics and be like, "Oh, I'm destined for this," and then they almost take it as like a reason not to do things. They're like, "Well, it's going to happen. It's inevitable," but it's not. It's so true. Like obviously genetics plays a role, but we have a lot of things we can modify in our lives that can make a huge difference for our longevity and quality of life.
Yeah.
So, kind of going off of that, like, what are some things that you focused on to set yourself up for a healthy lifestyle and health in general?
Well, it's really about lifestyle habits. What am I doing on a daily basis?
Mhm.
And what I needed to learn was that this wasn't just some silver bullet thing. This wasn't just some one thing I was going to do that was going to make it all change and be better. And as I started to learn more, and I'm talking about a 10 to 15 year period.
Mhm.
Uh, if I could, I would show you, and I do put it up on social media every once in a while. I have pictures of myself at like 50, 55 years old, and pictures of myself now at 65, 10, 15 years later, young.
Mhm.
And you look and go, well, which one is which? I mean, you want to talk about reversing aging,
Yeah.
and understanding that we can actually change our physiological or biological insides so that we slow down the aging process. So this isn't something like, oh yeah, I learned all this and within 6 months I was fantastic. I had optimal health. This was over a period of time. So
Mhm.
the biggie is lifestyle changes, all the different things. I mean, we're talking everything from learning about how do I get good sleep? How do I learn how to not eliminate stress, but to manage my stress better? How does nutrition affect me? What's brain health got to do with anything as far as my overall health? What's brain health all about? What about gut health? All those types of things, and exercise. How does exercise come in there? So
Mhm.
these were all different lifestyle factors that I realized, oh man, there's a lot of change here. And that's the biggie.
Mhm.
Once you start to understand what you got to do, it's kind of simple,
Mhm.
but it's not easy because as we know, us human beings, we struggle with that change thing.
Yeah.
A and even as I coach with people, that's the hardest part is they grasp the concepts, but
Mhm.
now we gotta work on the brain health and the mental aspect of being like, "Oh, okay, how do I work through these changes? And can I stick with them?"
Mhm. Yeah, that's often the hardest part is because we have this comfort zone, even if it doesn't serve us, but we tend to go back to that zone because it's efficient, it's what we know. So it is so
Yeah,
true. Like breaking out of that can be very difficult. Like conceptually, you understand it, but then it's like day in and day out. Actually, like you said, like applying it is really challenging. And but
yes.
I do like how you mentioned it's like it is simple and it's those daily little things that compound to create this different result. And that's the beauty of it. It's not like you have to do this overhaul of your life. You can just add a little bit each day and see the results. So I
And
love that.
that's and excuse me, and that's the best
Yeah.
way to do it. I mean, I know when
Yeah.
I work with folks, I'm very cautious to overwhelm people
Mhm.
because us human beings, if we get overwhelmed, we're done. It's all over.
So true.
So you have to do what's called precision personalized medicine, where it's with the individual. What can the individual handle in a certain period of time to make those changes? And we're all different. Some people can make the changes quicker, some slower. But it's understanding what can I handle, because your life could be very, very crazy, busy with stuff on, maybe you're a parent with, we've actually got a business coach that has 6 kids, and you want to talk about a busy mom
Mhm.
running a business and coaching other people. I mean, we're all kind of different. How much can we handle at one time? And so you really have to understand yourself.
Mhm.
What can I handle before I just overwhelm myself and implode and go, oh, well, forget it. Throw up your hands. I'm done. It's all over.
Right. Yeah, it's so true because I think a lot of times people will compare themselves to the next person and be like, well, why can they do it? Why is this so easy for them? Why do they look like that? And it is like we can't compare ourselves because we're all on our own journey and there's gonna be things that you're struggling with that somebody else isn't, but and vice versa. But so you have to be able to individualize it and just kind of go on your own journey. So yeah, I love how you point that out. Going off of brain health, you talk about nutrition and brain health because I think, and I know a lot of this talk around food is always about calories and weight, and that's typically why people look into food and what they know about food, because that's kind of like mainstream media and that's what people talk about, the next fad diet. But I love how we can look at it as like function, health, longevity. And if we can look at it from that point of view, now it just gives it so much more meaning. So can you talk about brain health and
Yeah.
food and how do we optimize brain health through food?
Okay. Now, what do we got? Like 2.5 hours? Are you
Yeah,
ready?
I know. Loaded question for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that I didn't understand, and why I'm so passionate about brain health is, when we think about nutrition and food and that, normally we're thinking from the neck down. It's kind of like, okay, I'm trying to trim up a little bit, or I'm trying to do this, or body sculpt, or whatever it may be that we're thinking what it's going to do from the neck down. But we're not thinking about, well, what's going on up here? And this, because Isabel and I, over the last probably about 6, 7, 8 years now, we're working with people in all areas as far as brain health, anxiety, depression, because we're seeing the rise in society of all these areas: anxiety, depression, mental health, and cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, all those types of things that we're just seeing more and more and more, that we had to figure out, well, what's going on up here? So from a food point of view, just to kind of, I'm going to do my best to keep it a little bit simple,
Mhm.
because that's how I learn.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
is
Definitely.
we have this part of the brain called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is our fright, run away, attack, defend. This is where when our hormones are elevated, the cortisol, the adrenaline, the amygdala is, we need it because this saves us from trouble, or helps us to attack when we need to, or run from trouble, all those types of things. So we need that. We need that going on. Then we have the other part of the brain, the frontal lobes, and that's like, the frontal lobes is like the adult in the room. It is where our emotions are, and our thinking, our decision making, where we have our relational thinking. This is where we just have the normal everyday decisions that we need to make. Our emotions, our stabilization of all that, that takes place in the frontal lobe. Well, when we have a poor diet, and I know we're not going to have enough time to get into what's a poor diet today, but the stuff that we all know, when we're eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugary foods, a lot of the bad foods, what that does is it actually activates the amygdala, and the amygdala is that flight or fright part. So when the amygdala is activated, and we're in this constant state of adrenaline and cortisol, meaning we're constantly like, we're on this edge all the time, like, hey, what's going on? What could it be? Because normally the frontal lobe overrides, the adult in the room overrides Hey, I've had teenagers. We've all been teenagers. I'll call the amygdala the teenager in the room. It's always got like, something going on. That, yes, we need that. But normally the frontal lobes override the amygdala when it needs to keep us stable. But now when we have a poor diet, the amygdala, it's flipped, is on all the time. We're always turned on this edginess of like, hey, what's this? What's that? And fight or flight. And now the teenager in the room is running our brain. And so that's what a poor diet starts to do to us, where the actual part of the brain where we only need to be on temporarily, we're in this constant state of fight, flight, run, defend, attack. We're on edge, we're moody, we're emotional, we got all this stuff going on. We lack then the decision making, the emotional balance. The actual adult in our brain stops running the show anymore. And so when we are out in the world, we're not functioning properly mentally. And that just throws everything off because, it just becomes a mess mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's a vicious cycle, with that, because if you're not the teenagers making the decisions because of the poor food choices, now you're more reactive. And now when you have food that's very accessible, which is like the processed food, you're probably
Yeah.
more apt to choose that than
Yes.
the healthier option. So it's like it probably just continues over and over and
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're in a constant state of adrenaline, cortisol
Yeah.
running like that. And sometimes, and then this creates what I call hypoglycemia.
Mm.
And hypoglycemia is, we've all kind of been in this state where you ever felt like, oh my, I feel like I got low blood sugar going on. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm at low blood sugar. I got to get some, I got to eat something, and you're that state of when you're feeling edgy or something, or like, oh, I got to get something. And that's, our blood sugar levels have really dipped.
Mhm.
And what happens is when we're in that state, we have our blood sugar levels are unstabilized. They're shooting up when we have these poor foods because we're getting this rush of blood sugar, glucose in our system. So we're actually activating that teenager in the room. That amygdala is now being activated. And yeah, we're feeling good. We're going, yeah. And we're into it. But then when that drops off very quickly, and when that crashes, then, because what goes up like that has to crash, we can't just stay there, but it comes crashing down. Now all of a sudden we're really in this like kind of almost like a mean state where I gotta, don't talk to me, right now, I gotta eat,
Yeah.
type thing.
Mhm.
Is that,
Oh, yeah.
what I'm talking about?
I've been there, my poor husband. I've been there. I get
But it,
hangry, I do. So
yeah,
I
hangry, you can
totally
call it
understand.
hangry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
But
totally
that's from a
understand.
crash of blood sugar. And now we got to grab something. And if we
Yeah.
grab the wrong foods, guess
Mhm.
what? Boom, we shoot back up again. So most of westernized eating diets or foods, when we're the way we're eating, our lifestyle, not just diet, but our lifestyle of eating, has us all day long going up and down and up and down in this crazy roller coaster cycle of food. And emotionally, we're in a constant state of instability. Just,
Mhm.
okay, I'm good for a little, now I'm down, now I'm good, now I'm down. And
Mhm.
imagine going through your life like that. It's difficult to be making smart decisions.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And can you talk about like some like the longer term effects of that too, like how the brain responds when someone's been living like that for 10, 15, 20 years? What happens as far as the brain health when this is a lifestyle?
It's actually very scary
Mhm.
because, Isabel and I have been mentored by a gentleman named Dr. Dale Bredesen, who's the world's leading expert in prevention and reversal of all Alzheimer's and dementia. And we do now know that it is a choice that we can actually prevent and reverse. And what we see this long term of doing that, number one, you could be stepping into type 2 diabetes very quickly, which we're seeing that exploding around the world. And of course, traditional medicine says, okay, well, here's here's the drug. We can manage that. Manage that. I can't stand to manage that. Well, I guess if you want to manage it, go ahead and manage it. I'd
Mhm.
rather not have it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know, call me crazy, but I'd rather not manage. I'd rather not have,
Yeah.
because still there's complications. And then the other one is what's called cognitive decline, because now when you're in that constant state, you're actually shrinking your brain. You're actually shrinking what's called the hippocampus, your memory center of the brain, and affecting what's going on as far as your memory, your cognition. And as that starts to be affected, now you're moving down the track of the cognitive decline into actually into all Alzheimer's, dementia, and all that, because we now know that that can start in your 40s and 50s,
Mhm.
because they are developed not over weeks, not over days, not over months, but over years and decades. They actually take decades to develop these types of things. So if we're in that constant state, we are setting ourselves up for a not so good second half of life. Let's put it that way, in a
Yeah.
nice way.
And that's so scary because again, those rates are increasing too, which makes sense because look at the food choices and look at the
Yeah,
general trend in foods. And now you definitely see an increase in dementia and Alzheimer's, which is very scary. And especially
yeah,
early onset, that's also increasing. So you can
yeah,
see it all makes sense when you look at the numbers and what's happening. And then you also look at what's going on with food choices. And also, there's a lot that goes into that too. But yeah, that's scary because it's not about longevity of life. If we have no quality of life, like who cares how long we live, we need to have that quality of life and we need to have that throughout our life cycle. And that's everything. And I think everyone would agree. It's like, I want to live a good life my whole life, not
yeah,
until you're
yeah,
50, not until you're 60, your whole life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Of course.
the managing healthcare part, they can keep us alive longer. But the problem is that the longer part is a poor quality of life, and and also it's a strain on not just the system, but your family.
Mhm.
Isabel and I see it all the time. It's difficult on all the loved ones when there's people who are living their last 10, 15, 20 years, a very poor quality of life. They're still alive, but it's a total strain on everyone around them because they're not really there. And unfortunately, we've seen that in some elderly folks in our family who lived just a horrible quality of life for their last 10 years of life. And I was like, that's not what we should be. We should be to our last breath. Here's the thing, Kelly. Our brain, to the last breath we take here on earth, should be the brain of a 25-year-old.
Mhm.
Our brain is elastic. It can grow and it can shrink. So
Mhm.
the thing is, what we're talking about here today is through our lifetime, our brain just doesn't stay the same. We don't just grow a brain and then there it is and it's the same. No, it actually grows and shrinks during our lifetime. And what we're doing is changing what's happening with our brain. And so our brain should function beautifully like it is when we're 25, when we're 95 or 105. That should still be clicking. Yes, from the neck down, our physical health could kind of start to come apart, but our brain should always be functioning well, even while we're still to our last breath.
That's
And
such an
that's a huge.
important point to make. And I hope people rewind that and listen to that again, because I think it's a common misconception that people think as
Mm,
we age, we should decline and things decline. It gets harder, like, and just listening to that. And I know this, it's neuroplasticity. It's very well proven that it's possible throughout your entire life cycle. And that is so important to take an active role in that and not just let time go and run its course. Like we can take an active role in preventing that natural decline, and that is just so key. uh, just
yeah.
absolutely important. And to kind of flip it from, I know we've talked a lot that like doom and gloom of all the bad things that can happen, let's flip on to the positive. Like, what for someone listening being like, okay, maybe my diet's not that good, I have dealt with brain fog and the hangries and all of
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
spoke. What can that person do to now flip that and optimize their brain health? What are some?
Okay.
changes they can make.
Yeah. Well, a lot of choices. And I think leading into that, Kelly, one of the
Mhm.
things I just want to touch on briefly is just to give your listeners and all of us a glimpse into, well, why, what's going on? How can I change this? And what could be the factors? And I think we've all heard this term. It seems to be very coined out there in the world. You hear it all the time, root cause, right? You
Mhm.
know, it's,
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know, 20 years ago, you didn't hear root cause quite as much as you do now. I mean, you even hear it from businesses talking, we got to get to the root cause of this and that. But a lot of times people say to me, well, what does that really mean? I mean, what are you talking about? So I just want to paint a picture here so we can understand root cause, because that is the key to getting better, is to start looking at the root causes of how you got to where you currently are.
Mhm.
So the whole root cause thing, let's just imagine a beautiful, pristine lake.
Mhm.
So think of your brain as this beautiful lake. We've all been around beautiful lakes. And over time, this lake becomes toxic. And, so we'll just, the lake is our brain. So the lake has become toxic. Well, we could throw some chemicals into that lake and try and clean up the toxicity. But that might make it look okay temporarily, but understanding that when we do that, that's really just covering up what's really causing the toxicity. I mean, have to keep adding the chemicals.
Mhm.
So we still kind of we now have a cleaner lake with a bunch of chemicals in it.
Mhm.
That's kind of traditional old-fashioned medicine way of doing it. But what we need to do in modern medicine, understanding that toxic lake, we got to look at all the tributary. Let's look at all the little streams and the rivers that are flowing into that lake. What's flowing into that lake? And what I mean by that is, by little streams, we need to look at things like exercise. I mean, movement. Is there any movement going, that stream? We need to look at the stream of nutrition. We need to look at the stream of sleep. We need to look at the stream of stress. We need to look at the stream of hormones. When you talk to my beautiful wife, Isabel, she was in her 50s and menopause, and hormones were just out of whack. And she herself, as an MD, would tell you that traditional medicine doesn't look really at hormones, as for men and women, but for women, it is vastly important, because a
Mhm.
quick stat is 2/3 of people in the world with Alzheimer's are women. Hello, we need to be helping women here look at this stuff,
Mhm.
in their 50s, but traditionally not done. So we got to look at hormones, we got to look at supplementation, all these little streams that are flowing into the lake. We have to look and say, okay, is the exercise stream toxic? Is it or isn't it? It's not? Cool, we're all good there. Is the nutrition stream flowing into this lake, is it toxic? Oh, that's a little messy. Okay, we got to work on cleaning that up. Is the sleep stream oh, I get about 4 hours of sleep a night, maybe five. No, that's not good enough for our brain.
Yeah.
I know in this world today, we're all talking about grind. Oh, we got to grind. That's
Mhm.
actually not good.
Mhm.
Yes, at times we have some deadlines that we got to grind, but not constantly. So let's look at that stream. So what I'm saying is, root cause is looking at all these lifestyle factors, the streams that are affecting our brain, and then seeing, okay, what ones do I have to clean up? For
Mhm.
me personally, I was in a constant state of what you call the toxicity you call inflammation. At 50, my nutrition was horrible, my sleep was horrible, my exercise was horrible, my stress was horrible, the way it was being managed. And as a male also, we got to look at male hormones. My male hormones were not good. I mean, my hormones had gotten way out of balance, and all that. And my testosterone as a guy, had just gone doink to basically nothing. I had to be adjusted.
Mhm.
So what people can do is, the best thing to do is look at all those different areas of your life and do an assessment on yourself.
Yeah.
Am I getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep a night? If not, then you need to look at sleep hygiene and what's affecting that. am I getting proper nutrition? Basically, nutrition, understanding that I'm eating real food, not frankenfood, stuff that's man-made, but I mean, am I eating enough real food? Look at your plate. Is it real or is it made up? Am I getting real food? And am I having not a lot of sugary stuff, a lot of processed stuff, just as a basic, just to get started? Am I managing my stress well? Stress is always there. Am I just on edge all the time? Okay, I need to look at some mindfulness techniques and some other techniques, whether it's prayer, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, whatever it may be for you. All these streams you personally have to look at and assess it honestly with yourself. And then if you need help, find somebody who understands, find a coach. Find a doctor, find a coach, find somebody who can help you in this area to get those streams cleaned up that are flowing into your lake of the brain. Because if you don't clean up the streams, that lake will always be toxic. You can't actually clean it up. You can't just throw a chemical into it and expect it to be good. It doesn't work that way. So
Oh, man.
hopefully that paints a picture to help out a little bit.
Oh, I love it. I have not heard that example, and I love it because it's such a good depiction of what should be done versus what typically is done. And it's so true. A lot of what's done around, like, I mean, I work with a lot of like people who have pain is symptom management. It's the same thing, you know, manage the symptoms. Oh, you present this way, we'll give you a pill to mask it. But it's not ever getting to what it needs to get to. Like, there's something causing this. We weren't designed as humans to be living like a dying flower, you know, like we're
Yeah,
meant to
yeah,
thrive, and
yeah,
we should expect better for our health. And I just love that
yeah,
example you gave
yeah,
of the lake, because it's so true. Like, no matter how many chemicals you put in it, it'll never be that pristine lake, and we need to cut off
yeah,
the source. Love
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got to have clean rivers and tributaries flowing into the lake for the lake to be clean.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand that in nature, but we don't kind of correlate it to our own mind and body. And so,
Yeah.
you know, once I started understanding, it's like, okay, I've got to look at all these areas of my life and go, ooh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of toxic, messy streams flowing into my body. So
Yeah.
they need to be cleaned up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh,
And going back to like when you talk about management, I think that's a lot of the problem, because that's thrown around so much with everything. Oh, let's manage it. Well, what is management? That means that you have this belief you will never actually heal. You'll never actually get better. Let's just minimize whatever you're experiencing, and you have to live with this the rest of your life. And I think that that being the common theme in so many medical practices is like, let's just manage it. And people accept this. But I think if you're listening to this and you've been struggling with something for a long time, demand better for yourself. Like, you don't have to just manage these things. Demand better. You deserve better. You
yeah.
deserve to
Yeah.
thrive. Like, you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Oh,
love that.
and what you said, demand. My beautiful wife is as an MD for 35 years. Isabel will be the first one to tell you, you know, yeah, demand better results. Don't just take what you're giving. I mean, it's your life. You
Yeah.
know, if you are not happy with the results you're getting, then demand better. You know,
Mhm.
look somewhere else,
Yep.
research, find somebody who says, well, okay, I can help you to get there in a way that's going to give you long-term optimal health. Yes, sometimes we need some relief. As you know, you're working with people with pain.
Mhm.
Sometimes we need some temporary relief. But the thing is, we don't want that to be our long-term way of doing it. We don't want that to be the long-term result, because that's just, you know, it's not that our body has a lack of drugs in it.
Mhm.
It's that something's going on. So
Yeah.
we think like, oh, I'm going to put all this into my body and I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not why there's a problem. That's
Mhm.
what the whole root cause thing is
Yeah.
looking at. Okay, yep, let's get some temporary relief, but now we got to do something about it long term if that's your choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And 100%. I mean, medications absolutely serve a purpose, and they're very
Yes,
important, but we
yes,
also have to look, like you're saying, at that root cause in conjunction with it. So that way you're not just relying the short-term thing, short-term fix, long-term. That's when it doesn't mix. And so
yeah,
those, lifestyle plus, there are people that absolutely need medications, but if you're
yeah,
not doing lifestyle modifications and looking deeper, then you're missing a big part of that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why I love what you and Dr. Isabel do, is like looking at that deeper picture of the people and recognizing like what's going on and looking at that root cause. And
Yeah.
I just love your mission of what you two are
Thanks.
doing.
And
Yeah.
and and back to what we started talking about with personalized precision medicine, all those different tributaries. If somebody's got a whole bunch of toxic areas of their life, lifestyle factors, a lot of dirty tributaries that are messing up their brain health, which messes up our lives, is we just have to look at, okay, which one can we change, right? Which one can we work on right now?
Mhm.
And if the individual can handle 2, 3, 4 areas, fantastic. But if they can't, then let's work on one.
Mhm.
And then let's work on another. And I know for myself, it was a process of about 10 years. Now, it sounds like a lot, but if those 10 years actually reversed 10 years of my physiological age,
Mhm.
because it's 65, that's for me, that's my calendar age, but my actual physiological age is 48.
Mhm.
So that 10-year period, I actually gained about 15 years, maybe even more, because I was really not in good shape at that time. So is it worth it? Well, I don't know about you, but I'd say yes.
Yes. Yeah, I would absolutely. I mean, anything that's putting you in the right direction, even if it's not, not immediate, it's worth it. As long as you're changing your trajectory, you're moving yourself forward in a way that's bringing you to health. And I think that's absolutely worth it.
Oh, that's a tweetable, changing your trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. There you go. It's everything, it's like we're always meant to grow mentally, physically, emotionally, like we're meant to grow as beings. And I think a lot of times we become stagnant or decline and just accept that sometimes. But if there's something, like you said, just one thing, if that's what you can handle right now, you start with that and it's going to change your trajectory. And that's what it's
Yeah,
all about. It's about the journey, not the immediate results. As long as you're
yeah,
journeying in the right direction, that's all that you need.
yeah. And I guess a lot of it also too is, as society, we've been taught so many things, and one of those sayings is, "Oh, it's just old age."
Mm, mhm.
That we see it with our cognitive decline clients, where for years they had problems and they kind of came to us when they were way down the track, which now makes it a lot more difficult, but we
Yeah.
can get there. But now it's a lot more difficult. That a lot of things were going on, a lot of cognitive decline things, forgetting keys, walking in the wrong room, kind of like, hey, how did I get here? Was I driving here or where?
Mm,
Those types of things. And I was, that's just old age. Well, we know it's not.
yeah.
But as a society, we've been told that, yeah, it's old, I'm 60 something, I'm 70 something, and I'm forgetting this. I don't remember that. I can't do this anymore. It's just old age.
Mhm.
Well, that's not true. We know that's not true now. The research
Yeah.
is there. So I guess one thing we have to understand as an individual is that just kind of the old normal thinking, or do I need to change my paradigm of thinking here that, well, actually something's going on? Do I need to wake up to realize something's going on and I got to put my hand up and say, help?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And taking that active role. And it is like a lot of times when we've been, that's so widely heard is that, oh, it's just old age. And then that becomes like our subconscious belief. But like, and so we have to also dive into is like, is that what we're supposed to do? Like we just age and we decline. Like, is that really what we're meant to do? And I think sometimes we don't even question that. And it just kind of happens. So it's like, let's question that. Like, what can, ask yourself if you're listening, right? Like, what's something I can do right now to change
Yeah.
what's going on? And that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it, is take an active role in anything you can do to move yourself forward. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And if that's too difficult to take on yourself, then find a coach like Dr. Kelly or myself and Isabel. Find somebody that can say, hey, I can walk this with you. I can give you some guidance. I can give you a plan. We'll take it at your speed. I was fortunate enough that at the same time, Isabel and I both went on this path together, and we were kind of accountable to each other. And as we researched, we both kind of found out about things, and then we'd say, hey, you need to change that. as a husband and wife would do.
Mhm.
And then we had our mentors and that helped us along the way, and coaches and all
Yeah.
that. So, was I able to do it all on myself? I kind of tried, but not really, but that's okay. You do what you can, and if you need help, find some good quality coaches that can help you along the way.
Yeah, 100%. Just having that guide, and it is sometimes it's hard, especially I know a lot of my listeners are like perfectionists and like it's hard to accept that help, but
Yeah,
it's so important. Like if you think about going through really high grasses and this really rough terrain and you're trying to like cut down the grasses and get to your destination, it's going to take you a lot more effort and aggravation versus like if you just step to the side and someone had already cleared a path for you and they're guiding you along this path, like you're going to get there quicker. You're going to make
yeah,
bigger strides, and it makes all the difference just having someone to help you through what they've already been through. And that's kind of what that purpose is, like to help the past version of yourself. So there's always people that are just one step ahead of you that can help
yeah,
you with that.
yes. And I
Yeah.
know your listeners, you talk about perfectionists and that, and I kind of use the word overachievers myself,
Yeah.
for that type of a person. But that's why brain health is so important for them. I mean, it really is. Okay, you want to be an overachiever, you want to be a perfectionist. Cool, you go for it. But let's get your brain health functioning well, so that the frontal lobes, the adult in the room, is running the show here. Yes, if there's, an accident up ahead and you need to slam on the brakes, okay, let the amygdala take over and go, ah,
Yeah.
but not constantly. So if you are that overachiever perfectionist and you want to be making smart decisions, if you want to be clear thinking, you want to be precise on things, you want to be emotionally stable throughout the day so that you can balance a lot more in your life, because if you're more stable, you can achieve more, you can be more productive.
Hmm.
So for that kind, like your listeners,
Yeah.
this is important for them to have good quality brain health so they can achieve more in a day. Because if you're
100%.
out of balance and your blood sugar levels are over the place, it's going to mess you up and you can't accomplish everything you want to do because it's just too messy.
Yeah, you're going to meet a lot more resistance if your brain's not in the place it needs to be. 100%.
Yeah.
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 One thing I just want to ask you, because I know when like people talk, well, I know there's a lot of things that people experience with barriers in eating well. And just some of the barriers that, I've been familiar with and have heard people say is like, one, it's too expensive to eat healthy, and especially in like the inflation market that we have right now. Two, they say I don't have time to eat healthy. That's another barrier I hear from people. And then three, one thing that I feel like is newer. So I just want to hear your opinion on these. Three is that I've heard, the quality of food is not as good as what it used to be. So like there's a lot of like GMO stuff and things are changing, and people don't really know how to navigate current food. So I know this is a really loaded question, but if you could just kind of like I know I'm giving you a lot here. But just kind of like touch on those, like, how do you work through some of those barriers that people have when
Yeah.
they want to eat healthy but don't really know even where to begin because it feels so overwhelming to work through
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. So from all those factors,
Mhm.
money and time and everything else, it's
Mhm.
really about the individual. First off, financially wise, where are they at? What can we change right now? So
Mhm.
from an eating point of view, can you afford to eat organic?
Mhm.
Yes, no. Be best if you could. If not, okay, can you afford your vegetables to be organic or certain foods to be organic? If not, okay, we'll move to the next level. Can you definitely afford to have fresh fruits and vegetables and salad greens and all of that stuff that's fresh?
Mhm.
Um, okay, great. That's necessarily in a can or a package or something. Then we want to move to that as much as possible. So, as far as your meats, what's your proteins in that? What can you afford? What can you do? So you got to work with the individual and where they're at, what they can do, and move them down the path. Now, the biggie though with finances is one thing we have to understand. We've all heard this, the old saying, pay now or pay later.
Mhm.
But it is so true.
Mhm.
I mean, what we do now know, the statistics are out there. If somebody doesn't change these habits, And what we're now seeing is, and I can tell you because Isabel and I are working with these people, and so is Dr. Bredesen's team around the world, we are seeing people in their 50s and 60s with Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, we think that's, oh yeah, that's an old person. That's 7, 80, 90. We're seeing people in their 50s and 60s.
That's
I mean,
scary.
we've currently worked with people at that age. Okay.
Wow. Mhm.
So it's not to think that this can't be coming along fairly early.
Mhm.
So when we say pay for now, pay for later, even things like diabetes and all this and that, that could be coming on, mental illnesses. If we take care of it now, hopefully then we're not stepping into those things, because we know that on average around the world, if somebody needs care, whether it's a rest home, 24/7 care, they need family help, you're looking at around $250,000 to $350,000 a year to take care of that person.
Mhm.
Well, not a lot of families can do that. Yes, everybody pitches in together, they can. But the problem is if we kind of just invest a little bit more, and I know that's difficult, but we really need to look at how can we change some habits to invest now so that we avoid this down the track, because when it comes, it's huge and it's big, and we all understand healthcare bills, hospital bills, doctor bills, all the stuff, and or if you need full care. And we're seeing people, like I said, in our 50s and 60s around the world in westernized diets and eating styles, who are having to go in those types of cares.
Mhm.
And so we got to do our best to avoid it from a financial point of view. And that's going to be different for everybody, but we got to do what we can. And the biggest thing you can do is just do your best to move toward fresh fruits and vegetables, organics if you can. If not, at least try to get fresh.
Mhm. Yeah.
And from time, um, prioritize it. It's not a time problem, it's a priority problem.
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, our business coach, she's a woman with a husband with 6 kids. The lady had quads. Holy cow. You want to talk about time? This lady had 4 kids at one time.
Gosh.
Amazing woman.
Wow.
Shout out Julianne Kirkland in Atlanta in Georgia.
Oh my gosh.
uh, but
Yeah.
she's a business coach. She's an entrepreneur. She's got, speaking engagements. She's got 6 kids now that are in the age of 8 to 14, and a husband who has a business.
Mhm.
Is time a problem for her? Well, not really, because she prioritizes what's important through the day.
Mhm.
And so I think for all of us, do I have time to exercise? I'm too busy to exercise. Well, it's not a time problem. It's a priority problem. You going to do it or not? Prioritize it.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's the best way I can say, I mean, are you going to sit down and eat? My problem when I was a chef was it was just getting thrown in my face
Mhm.
whenever I could, and just,
Mhm.
are you going to sit down, chew your food, relax, breathe, have good food hygiene, take your time, eat it lovely, let it digest. Oh, that takes half hour to sit down and do that. Well, it's good for you. You got to prioritize it.
Mhm.
And so for those two, I think time is more of a priority thing you got to do. You got to prioritize it. It's not a time problem, it's a priority problem. And the third one is, what was the third one you fired at me?
Yeah, so, I read that, like, the quality of food is not as good as it was
Oh,
because of just
yeah.
manufacturing and processing, and you can just if
Yeah.
you talk about that and how you've noticed that or change it, if you have seen
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're correct. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
correct. Even here in little old New Zealand,
Mhm.
we're pretty good with things being clean.
Mhm.
Still, you've got to research it. You got to check things out. You
Mhm.
got to make sure you're, not getting something that's chemicalized, shall I say.
Mhm.
And same thing anywhere in the world is, yeah, the foods have really changed, and you might need supplementation. I mean, that's an area to look into. I mean, Isabel and I take our vitamins and minerals and supplements every day only because we need to fill in the gaps. We call it's insurance. It's
Mhm.
not your front line, because the actual foods where the nutrients are is your front line. But in today's world, we all need some help, some supplementation, and that's why doing some testing and seeing where you're at. We don't guess, we test, we don't guess. And your vitamin D levels could be real low. A lot of your other levels of different vitamins and minerals could be low or out of balance. And you need to take a look at all those different things. And if you need supplementation, great. That's just some health insurance. That's
Mhm.
probably the best health insurance you could really have.
Yeah, on it, absolutely, for sure. And the one thing, just going back to when you're talking about the money, investing in yourself, it's so true. And this is like one thing that was like a mind-opening thing that years ago is like, what's the cost of action versus what's the cost of inaction? And it's so true, because I think a lot of times we all think like, oh, what's the cost to do this? But if you can shift it like from what, exactly what you're saying is like, if you don't do this, what is going to
Yes.
cost you? And it's going to cost you a lot. If you have early Alzheimer's, or your quality of life is suffering, or you have to be, you know, you can't live the life you want to be or be present with your kids, that's worth a lot to a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, it's such a, like you said, paradigm shift to shift to that mindset of like, okay, it costs something to do this, but what's it going to cost me in the long run? And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just making those small little things like, maybe don't do your whole diet, but maybe add just one thing that's healthy, and then you start there and just do
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
smallest action you can, that you can move yourself forward so that
Yeah.
you're not feeling overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. Be kind to yourself. Just take the steps you can.
Mhm.
I mean, hey, if I know your group is
Mhm.
perfectionists and a lot of overachievers, and hey, if you can go for it all and not be overwhelmed,
Mhm.
then okay. Because
Yeah.
if we get overwhelmed, we just quit and stop and we're done. So we don't want that to happen. But
Mhm.
yeah, just take those steps. And if it's small steps, fantastic. Because there's a lovely book called The Slight Edge, and it's the slight
Oh,
edge of
I like
life
that
where,
one. Yes.
we're either going up or we're going down. Oh, you
Yeah,
know that book?
I do. I've read it. Yeah.
Oh, I think,
Good book.
yeah, I love it. I love it
Yeah.
because it's about the daily mundane habits that we don't think
Yeah.
about.
Jeff Olson.
Is, that
Yeah.
cheese, yeah, that cheeseburger today isn't going to kill me.
Mhm.
But if I'm having that once a month, then it's not kind of it's not affecting my blip up and down. But if I'm having that 3, 4, 5 times a week, now I'm on a little bit of a decline because that's become part of my habits. And
Mhm.
so it's
Yeah.
just the little things. Am I getting the exercise I want? Am I getting the sleep in what I want? And that, and so life is not life of health is not a flat line. It's
Mhm.
either going up or it's going down. And yes, at times it's got little blips,
Yeah.
but mine was heading into the tank very quickly around the age of 50. And like I said, both of my parents died young of chronic disease. And that's when it kind of slapped me up the side of the face and said, dude, hello, wake up.
Yeah.
You're about to go right in there in the grave with them very quickly. So now I'm on the upslope. Yeah, there's some dips here and there, but
Mhm.
overall it's on the upslope, and that's what we can do and make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I love the reference to that book, because that book really puts it in perspective. And I think that's the biggest thing I think people miss is like looking perspective. Like, can you take kind of like that step back and look at your overall picture? Like maybe today you didn't eat well, but in general, do you tend to eat well? And that's going to be the
Yeah,
big difference between going in one trajectory or going in another. So yeah,
yeah.
100%. I
And
love,
that's a great key, is don't be too harsh on yourself. I mean,
yeah.
like I said, when we're working with folks and sometimes they say the old saying, fall off the wagon or whatever you
Mhm.
want to say. And it's just for a day or two, or maybe they had a holiday, or maybe they went to a family reunion or something, and it was a few days. They feel like, oh my gosh, I'm back to ground zero. No, you haven't. You just had a little bit of a blip, and that's fine. You didn't, this isn't your norm,
Mhm.
so just get back on again and away you go.
Mhm.
You have to give yourself a little bit of a break along the way too, in your process.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy life too. So
Yeah.
it's all about that keeping
Yeah.
harmony in the whole
Yeah.
process. Mhm.
Yeah.
I love it. And I feel like we could talk all day about this. Is there anything you want to touch on before we kind of wrap things up, or?
I just wanted to say real
Yeah.
briefly, because I know you talk, your listeners, you work with people with pain and that, and I know you know this, but I probably just want to reiterate to
Yeah.
everyone what Dr. Kelly's probably been telling you all or letting you all know, that pain is really a marker of inflammation.
Mm,
Whenever we have pain throughout our body, it's what's called inflammation. And what Isabel and I always like when we talk inflammation, because we hear this, it's another one of those catch words, inflammation, inflammation. But what does it truly mean? And even cognitive decline is inflammation of the brain. Understand, when you hear the word inflammation, think of fire.
mhm.
And so that means there's a fire going on in our body system somewhere. If you've got back pain, or you got knee pain, or an elbow pain, or you've got cognitive decline and things going on, that's inflammation of the brain. We have to think of a fire. And for most of us throughout our whole life, for decades, we're walking around with this little smoldering fire going on. We all kind of have them going on. That's just the way life is. There's little smoldering fires going on somewhere. But because of poor lifestyle choices, we start to feed that fire. And eventually, all of a sudden, we have this blaze going on. And that's when we're like, all this pain, or, oh my gosh, I can't think. And there's an explosion. And that's usually when we go to the doctor
Mhm.
and we get a diagnosis for these symptoms.
Yeah.
And so it's understanding that that fire means there's inflammation. And just because I have chronic knee pain, well, that doesn't mean it's the knee. That means there's inflammation going on somewhere. I mean, it could be everything from gut health to hormones that's actually affecting your knee. So
Yeah.
we have to look at, well, what's causing the fire? Again, it's the old root cause thing. We have to look at what's causing the fire, and then we've got to put the fire out.
Hmm.
And so I know with you, that's probably a lot of your work that you do with your chronic pain people, but just to help them understand that there's a fire
Yeah.
and we got to put the fire out.
I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up too, because that was one thing I wanted to ask you about, was inflammation, because that's such a big thing in so many people, and they're just like chronically inflamed, and diet is playing a role in that. Everything else, all those factors that you're talking about, those tributaries are all playing a role in that. And it's so ironic you talk about fire, because right now our whole air quality is terrible from the fires that are happening in Canada. Like
Oh,
I'm in New Jersey, and there's just smoke all in the air. You can smell it. But like when you talk about a little fire, if there was a little fire in Canada, I wouldn't know it happened. But
yeah,
because it's so big, it's widespread. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is that inflammation is affecting more, because it's such a huge fire going on
yeah,
within the
yeah,
blaze within the
yeah,
body. Yeah. So yeah,
yeah,
it's a great example. And that's, again, like just more reason for, like, if you're experiencing that. And I love how you talk about, like, if you have knee pain there, it doesn't necessarily mean it's happening in the knee. It's just that you're experiencing that because of the overall inflammatory response. And such an important point to make. So thank you for sharing that.
Hey, it's all just coming out today.
Mhm. Yeah, that's I said. I love wherever it goes. So I love that.
Well,
Like,
you are an excellent host.
oh, thank you so much. I've just generally enjoyed speaking with you. And I just, like I said, I feel like we could have like a 3-hour conversation here, but for the sake of time, I have to kind of close it up. But I do want the listeners to know how they can find you and access you.
Okay.
So what's the best place?
Well, for Isabel and I, and our hashtag is the MD and Chef team.
Mhm.
But our website is the www.doctoronamission.com, and that's doctor as DOCTOR, doctoronamission.com, and that's where you can find us. There's a lot of freebies, some giveaways. I gotta have a quick shout out that I just did. I've done a free resource that's on the website, and it's called Smart Eating for Smart Kids. It's fueling your child's brain for success. So
Love
this
that.
is about setting up your kids for good brain health, because the brain is developing in the early stages of youth. And if we're not setting our kids up properly, the brain's not going to develop properly, and they can get all messed up. By the time they're in their 20s, they already have poor brain health. So that's a resource that's on our website, www.doctoronamission.com. I
I
guess I
love
should
that.
sing it.
Yeah, I love it. And I'll have that all in the show notes too. So if you missed it
Okay.
or you want to like ask, I'll put it in the show notes. And one thing too is, like, because I was on your website, that I love is that you have the recipes on there and also like how it impacts your brain health. And I was looking at the epic raw carrot cake. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it looks delicious. And also
Oh
I
yeah.
wrote down, because I'm like the chocolate coconut fat bomb. I'm like, oh, I need to make these. They look delicious. So another thing to check out on their website, because these recipes look epic.
Yeah, they're cool. It's good.
Yeah, it looks amazing. So
And try it out on us personally.
yeah, yeah, and then I also love that, like, when you make it, share with them so they can, like, see how that it turned out. But I mean, these recipes look so good, like, right up my I wanna go make them now.
Yeah. And
So
make them for your kids because they want to
yeah,
develop that brain health.
absolutely, and I just love that too, because you gotta start young. It's like, if
Yeah.
you're living a healthy life and you're doing the right things, your kids are gonna model that. So it starts with us, and it's not selfish, it's taking care of yourself, and that's what you're gonna show your kids, that
Yeah.
it's important to take care of themselves as
Yeah.
well. So
And before we go, Kelly, you just said something so
yeah.
beautiful too, because another reason why our mission is so impactful and so important is this is generational.
Yeah.
When we are changing somebody's long-term health, we're changing that for them, not just them, but for their family and for generations, because, people see it. I mean, the folks that we're helping to reverse their Alzheimer's and dementia, their family is see it. Their children and their grandchildren are see it, because right now those younger ones are thinking, oh, well, I guess that's just going to be me when I get there. But what they're seeing with those recoveries is, oh, that doesn't have to be me. That can actually happen. And
Yeah.
so this is what I know you're doing and what we're all doing in this space right now with new medicine is generational, because it just starts with one, but that one can change that family for generations about what they do and the changes they make. So if it's you, any one of your listeners who you're the one that changes your long-term
Yeah.
health, that's generational. And I want to shout out to you. I want to honor you for doing that, because that's making a massive difference in
Oh
your
my gosh.
family.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And then just as you were saying that, I don't know if you read the book, The Power of One More by Ed
Yes.
Mylett. Yeah. So he talks about that. Are you going to be the one in your family that breaks the
Yeah.
cycle? Are
Yeah.
you the one?
What are we in the same book club or
We
what?
must we must be. I know. They're all amazing books. Like, I read a lot. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we do too. Yeah. Need
Yeah.
it. Need it. And that's another thing with the brain, you got to keep the brain stimulated, just for your folks. You want to keep the brain going, you got to keep it stimulated.
Yeah.
Don't just say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm retired. I'm not going to do anything." Nope, got to keep this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. I feel like I said, I hate to
Okay,
like,
okay.
I
I
want to
get
just,
it. I get it.
no,
I'm done. I'm
I
out of
want to just
here.
keep talking, because I'm like, I love this. Like, brain health is just like, it's such an important topic, and it literally needs to be like screamed from the rooftops, because it's everything. It directs your entire life. So I love it. And I'm up to part two. But thank you so much for coming on today. And
Oh,
everyone who's
beautiful.
listening, please follow their website. They're on social media, follow everything, because I just love yours and Dr. Isabel's mission of like just bettering people's lives. And thank you for everything you both do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. And thank you for your listeners for being here with Dr. Kelly on her podcast.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And definitely, follow the podcast, and definitely check out Dr. Isabel's episode as well, because these two just complement each other so well. So definitely check that out. But thank you again for being here, and thank you for listening to the podcast today. Thank you for spending your precious time to listen to this episode of Rewiring Health. My mission is to inspire hope and healing through science-backed practices. If you found value in this, please share with 3 people and leave a review. By doing so, this message can be spread to those who need to hear it most. Also, to get updates on the most recent episodes, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for being part of this community, and I am forever grateful for you.